Welcome to this next episode of YouTube, which is titled Howling, Howling, and More Howling. And we're starting with the first clip with Boltz, who's inside the lab kennel, and he lifts his head in response to Luna howling, and you hear Oscar barking in the background. So Boltz gets a lot of outdoor time, and a lot more than Luna, because Luna's still unrestricted access. When she's outdoors, she's in a small kennel, again trying to make sure that we heal that leg before she gets to romp and play in the yard. This is a deer leg that Boltz has, and he's doing what we call a predator head shake, and that's kind of a killing behavior. This next clip of howling is Boltz and Aidan whining next to the fence. And that's Shadow, Malik, and Grizzer in the background there. And on this clip, again, Boltz howling again. And again, Aidan whining at the fence. Aidan and Denali aren't much for howling, so it's probably, again, when we took Shadow out, Shadow was kind of the pack leader, and so neither one of these kind of assumed pack leader role. And so Shadow usually stimulates it, a Shadow or Grizzer, and Aidan doesn't always follow along, so it's a good thing that Shadow, Malik, and Grizzer are howling. That stimulates Boltz to howl, but again, he comes over to Aidan to be able to do the howling, and you see this clip is from the inside of the enclosure, the perspective of what Aidan and Denali see with Boltz along the fence line. And again, it stimulates them to do a little bit of face licking and jaw sparring and greeting. And here's Luna in her outdoor enclosure.
That was stimulated by an ambulance siren.
And Boltz again up against the fence, Shadow, and starting that howl. That deep-throated howl you hear is Shadow. Shadow is probably responding a little bit to strangers in the wolf yard. He's been doing a little bark howling and a little threat display howling. And sorry for the footage there. Sometimes people are new with the camera, so it's got a little quick on the zoom there. And then Grizzer, one thing we have been working with Grizzer, he's the farther along with shedding than anybody, so he gets into a stimulated howl. To tell Grizzer from the rest of them, he tends to do a little more chatter. And the other wolves howling in that clip were Shadow and Malik. Notice a little bit on the top of his head. You know, he still has a little bit of that open spot in his head where that hair never grew. We, you know, don't seem to have too much issues with it. In retirement, we're having some fly issues, and unfortunately these guys are reluctant to let us put fly ointment on. So here's Shadow on top of the den. And he was a little agitated on this particular day. He started out with a bark howl, which is kind of a threat display, and was really freaking out Boltz. Boltz, you know, being a wolf, understands bark howls as threat display. And we switch over to Malik, who was howling with Shadow, but typically Malik's going to go off to the side and howl. Shadow's being more dominant, will be on the top of the den. And again, these stimulated howls are most often coming from either Grizzer or Shadow, and that's leading the pack, and everybody seems to respond. But if we had to judge who was really kind of responsible for most of this, I would say Shadow, and Shadow still psychologically is the pack leader here. So that's it for this week, a little bit shorter than usual, but we did obviously announce the names. Luna is formerly known as Peanut, and Boltz kept his name, just changed his spelling a little bit, which is good because it really is his personality, and he does respond to his name. So that's it. Thanks for voting, and we'll see you next week.